And good morning. How goes it with your practice today? I'm going to talk this morning about decision making and decision making informed by meditation and prayer. So how does this feed into the ongoing discussion of cultivating authentic presence, right? So some context. I had a big decision to make at my job. I work in a large organization, and quite often things change in the management structure. It's just kind of routine, and having been there for a long time, I've got to the point where I can roll with the punches. Sometimes those moves I like, and sometimes I don't like them. But for the most part, they don't fundamentally mean that much. But this was different. There's a large change going on, and my role is kind of up for grabs. Meaning, there's a new group being formed. I'm in an existing group, and the new group, the leaders in the new group, thought that my role belonged in there, and as it turns out, the leaders in my existing group disagreed with that. And you can imagine there's quite a lot more behind that than I'm saying or that I know. I'm going to be very general about this because I wanted to apply to not just decisions about employment and jobs, but decision-making process. I'm trying to create the context. This was a significant decision regarding my employment. I never thought during the process that I was going to lose my job. And in fact, for a couple of months, I knew this was being discussed, but I wasn't involved. And what I expected was I would be just told, stay here, go there. And I would have been, a good corporate citizen, as I always have been. And maybe this is why it was different, is that ultimately the two groups couldn't come to an agreement, so they sort of threw their hands up and said, well, let's Kaiser. Let's see what he wants to do. So let's say option A, the new group, is smaller. It's a newer group with people who I've worked with in different contexts for a long time, and I really like working with them. And the work that I do makes a lot of sense in that structure. But it's a smaller role, and on paper it looks like a bit of a step down. Remember that, because I really got stuck on that. It looks like a demotion. Things like title, salary, none of those were going to change, but in terms of the organizational scope, in terms of management and hierarchy, it appears to be a step down. On the other hand, the group that I'm in now suggests that if I stay, there would be some changes in that group and the opportunity for a larger role even than what I have now, which comes with visibility at the executive level, status, the possibility for eventually, although this wasn't on the table, but for now, but eventually, and the next level in titles, all those kinds of things. And not that those are ruled out in option A, but they're obviously not immediate. Right? And I was really struggling with this. I didn't want to make this decision. And I was really going back and forward. because recognize this about me, that the status and the hierarchy is important to me. I know that that's pride-based, ego-based, but I like that. I like I've worked hard to get to a level already, and I like it. But on the other hand, I also like being a bit idiosyncratic and eccentric and have the ability to spend time being kind of creative in terms of problem solving. And in the smaller group, that would be, because it's a newer group and there's a lot more kind of up in the air, that would be a bigger part of my role. I ruminate when I have a decision that I'm having a tough time with, right? Some people totally avoid. I get anxious and I ruminate. And by ruminating, I mean I will walk around and just have imaginary conversations with everybody. And I would have an imaginary conversation with Group A. I would just be like, why can't you just find something on the paper of the organization that's aligned with what I think I should have? Right after 10 days of this, I was driving everyone around me crazy, and it's just making myself very unhappy. Okay, so that's the context. A and B, basically we can say A is perhaps what I would really want to do, but with a perceived demotion. B is a great opportunity doing interesting, important work with a status bump. So how do I come to a decision? Because I had to make a decision. I'll let you know I did. Friday, it's Monday morning now. Friday last week, I sent out an email. I talked to people, made a choice. And I'd kind of known what the decision should be a few days earlier than that. Right? So what is a decision? All right, let's start with this. What is a decision? And this is where the meditation practice comes in. Because I don't think there is such a thing as a decision. There is an experience of the unfolding of the previous conditions. I'm very influenced by Sam Harris and his writings and discussions on free will here, that the sense of agency in a decision is an illusion. Except perhaps for the decision to meditate. That may be the only decision that comes from the true the true presence of the self, of the awareness, right? Not the self. We'll talk about free will more, but you can see how this touches on that. If I'm sitting and I think I want to make a decision, I kind of choose anything other than what's presented in front of me. And you can try this now, like the exercise Sam has is, think of a record, like an audio record. Think of an audio record. Think of it. Did you really pick that, or did something come to mind? Just extrapolate that out. Here's how I think of this. This moment right now, the moment you're in right now, what could you possibly have done yesterday, or a week ago, or a year ago, that could have guaranteed that you would arrive at this moment with this cup of coffee, watching this video, right? And move that out to more significant questions. Could I have done anything that would have guaranteed that I have this life today I just meditated with my dogs. I'm about to take them out for a walk. I have a nice cup of coffee. I live in a house that I love. My wife is sleeping downstairs. How could I have created the steps to arrive at that? I couldn't have, right? Now, I'm absolutely not saying that we're just passive, because we're not. We are in a balanced state between observation and action. And what I'm saying is that the action part of that, the idea of agency in that, is a bit misleading. What I can do is be clear and present, so that as phenomena emerge, I respond skillfully. And I was not responding skillfully last week. I was ruminating, and I was being a bit rude to everybody, and I was feeling aggrieved and put upon. Now, when I get that sense, like the sense that people aren't treating me with the respect I deserve, that's a red flag in my life. I know that means that I'm not thinking clearly. I just know that for me. I mean, there is something different for you all. If you feel aggrieved and put upon, it could be that you're genuinely being mistreated. But for me, that sense of people not treating me with respect just means that I'm getting wrapped around the axle of my own ego, my own self. No one is mistreating me. So, start with that idea that there isn't really a thing called a decision. There are actions that we take that are more or less skillful based on our current perception of the previous karmic conditions. Right? There is no such thing as a decision. There is our ability to clearly and skillfully discern the existing moment with previous karma. I'm going to call it karma, but you can call it previous uprising of previous conditions, the impact of previous actions. And I mean not just big actions like did I take this job or not, but I mean down to what time did I get up this morning? Everything leading to this moment. The butterfly effect is very true. Yeah. Okay, so driving myself crazy. One morning in my meditation. So my meditation nowadays starts with 20 minutes, sometimes half an hour of Dzogchen practice. And then I shift to prayerful contemplation of Christ and God, the divinity. Often right now I'm using a psalm. But the Lord's Prayer. I run through the Lord's Prayer. And within each section, stop and pause and cogitate on what it means for the kingdom or for your will. You know? So the meditation teaches me the mechanics of the moment. Right? There's no dogma or theology or doctrine or there's nothing implied in meditation other than understanding the mechanics of creation. So it helps me be skillful because it clears, it makes stable the recognition that thoughts, emotions, that sense of aggrievement, those ruminations, those are perturbations in consciousness. Just as my breath is a perturbation in awareness, just as this video is sounds, sensation. They're all arriving in this open, aware state. And then I shift gears from that open, aware state. And I pray. And I pray to follow the Lord's will. because that leads to a delightful, bountiful life, whatever it is. And I can, like in the Psalms, you can start with any emotion, rumination and anxiety about a job. I don't have to be in a cave with an army out to get me, or consumed with guilt or shame. In this case, I was consumed with anxiety and this sense that I was grabbing at status and ego. So I got this enormous sense. I don't know what to expect, right? When I pray, when I meditate, I don't know what it is to. There's never a voice that says, do this. But I had those two options clearly, option A and option B were very clear. And the sense I got was, with option A, was just this enormous sense of relief. And everything I described it, creative, visionary, growth. My career is important. And nobody has said that this new role is constrained by its newness. This time next year, it could be 10 times as big. I could project myself out 3 months into what the two different working conditions might be. And just in that prayerful moment, it felt very clear that option A resonated. Option B, although not a bad option, right, would be rewarding in some ways, but challenging in ways that my career has always been challenging, and it didn't need to be anymore. This was very clear. Now, to help clarify that, I use tarot cards, right? So if you are a theologian or a lama or a pagan listening to this, at any point in the last 15 minutes, I probably said something that you rolled your eyes at. So I meditate so that I can mature the stability of awareness. And I pray because the universe and God have a design in mind. And in that open, aware state, can I discern that design in the way that I live? I'm talking about very specific mechanics. And then to help understand that, my Jungian archetypes respond to tarot decks. They're not divination tools. They don't know the future. That's nothing. Right? But the layers of the mind do know things. And so if I were to tell you what I really think happens in tarot deck, I think as you're shuffling, there's some part of my awareness that knows what those cards are and is doing micro manipulations to come up with a card. That's really what I think is happening. I don't think there's some supernatural influence on the cards, but I do think that it's worth looking at a card as a mirror, as a reflection. So I had two cards, option A, option B. Option A, Major Arcana 7, the Chariot. Now, when I read cards, sometimes I look up, I have a bunch of books, but mostly I allow for my intuition to come up with a reasoning. And the Chariot, well, what is the Chariot? It's a means of moving forward. It's a strong means. It's a Major Arcana. It is, I'm not the driver of the Chariot. I am, right, the Chariot of, the Chariot is the vessel that brings vision and understanding. It's kind of like the wind horse in Tibetan metaphysics. That's how I look at the Chariot. So a very strong affirmation. The vessel of the path. That's what the Chariot is. Option B, the Eight of Swords. No. Swords are mental activity and intellect and ideas. And the 8 is not a terrible card. Some of those, like the 9, the 7, and the 9, the swords are immediately out of balance. I think the 7 of Swords in the right waiter, you actually have someone on the floor with swords stuck in their back. The 8 is a more balanced number, but it's still swords everywhere, woven in amongst themselves. This complex mentation with a lot of risk, because every one of those swords could flip out and become a pain. So my intuition is once you get beyond once you get beyond the Ace or the 2 of Swords, you should just really be careful what's coming up. And the 7, 8, 9 are complex situations. So not that they should be avoided, but because sometimes you cannot avoid them. But in this case, with a choice, I don't want to be in a position where every day is a fraught balancing act of. So I chose A, based on that process. And it's all fundamentally the idea that choice, ultimately, I sit here and I feel like what I did was allow the situation to present itself to me and then kind of align with one set of outcomes. Now you're probably sitting there listening, yeah, you made a decision. But I don't think I did. I think I went in a certain direction where the road forked. And I allowed myself to be moved. Right? There was never an option where I was going to look at those cards and do anything other than choose the Chariot. I could go back there in a year. Let's say this all goes crazy. If I were to time travel back to Wednesday last week, there's no way that I could be a different person making the same choice and come up with a different outcome. Right? So, anyway, that's a long way of saying when there's an important decision to be made, you aren't making a decision. You're examining a scenario and then, like water, following a path. You can discern what that path is. I hope that's helpful. There's a lot in this video, so if you have questions, shoot them to me either in a comment or in an email, and I'll talk more about it. I think it's helpful to see how in very practical or career-oriented choices, the authentic presence is just as demanded, just as required as if you were sitting in a monastery or on a retreat somewhere. So I'm going to head out and get ready for work, and you all keep your wits about you.